we're going to bring them back to the Stone Age, where they belong. Those were the words of the most powerful man on Earth, spoken just days ago, referring to a country of 93 million people, a country currently under American and Israeli bombs, a country whose bridges are being destroyed one by one. But here's what Trump and most of the Western world seems to have forgotten. Iran has already been to the Stone Age, and from that Stone Age, it built the greatest empire the ancient world had ever seen. So before we talk about the Iran of today, the sanctions, the bombs, the Ayatollahs, let me take you back, way back, to the Iran that once ruled half the known world.
The land we call Iran today sits at the crossroads of everything. To the west, Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, where writing, law, and cities were invented. To the east, the vast steppes of Central Asia. To the north, the Caucasus Mountains. To the south, the Persian Gulf, the gateway to Arabia and India. No civilization that wanted to rule the ancient world could ignore this land, and for thousands of years, nobody did. The Iranian Plateau was home to ancient peoples long before Persia existed. The Elamites, the Medes, these were sophisticated civilizations, building cities while most of Europe was still living in mud huts. But it was around 550 BC that something extraordinary happened. A man named Cyrus II, son of a minor king, looked at the world around him and decided it wasn't big enough.
You've heard of Alexander the Great. You've heard of Julius Caesar. You've probably heard of Genghis Khan. But the man who built the largest empire the world had ever seen, who ruled more of humanity than anyone before him, is someone most Westerners can barely name: Cyrus the Great. In just 10 years, Cyrus conquered the Median Empire, the Lydian Kingdom in modern Turkey, and the mighty Neo-Babylonian Empire. 3 of the 4 great powers of the ancient world, gone, absorbed into one Persian superstate. But what made Cyrus truly remarkable wasn't the conquering, it was what came after. When Cyrus entered Babylon in 539 BC, one of the greatest cities on earth at the time, he didn't burn it, he didn't enslave its people, he introduced himself as their king, repaired their temples, and freed the political prisoners rotting in Babylonian jails. Among those prisoners, the Jewish people, held captive in Babylon for decades. The Hebrew Bible reports that Cyrus released the Jewish people from the Babylonian captivity in 539 BC and permitted them to return to their homeland. To this day, Cyrus is the only non-Jewish figure in the Hebrew Bible to be called Mashiach, the Anointed One, a Messiah. He then issued something historians call the Cyrus Cylinder, a clay tablet declaring that all conquered peoples had the right to worship their own gods, keep their own customs, and live under their own laws. Some historians call it the world's first Declaration of Human Rights, written 2,500 years before the UN Charter. British historian Charles Freeman suggests that in scope and extent, the achievements of Cyrus ranked far above those of Alexander the Great, who would later demolish the empire but failed to provide any stable alternative.
After Cyrus came Darius the Great, and under Darius, Persia didn't just rule an empire, it invented what an empire could be. Consider the scale. At its height around 475 BC, the Achaemenid Empire ruled over 44% of the world's population, the highest figure for any empire in history. Not the Roman Empire, not the Mongols, not the British Empire at its peak, Persia. From Greece and Egypt in the west, all the way to the Indus Valley in modern Pakistan in the east, from the Caucasus Mountains in the north to the Arabian Desert in the south. One king, one empire, half of humanity. And how did they manage it? Darius built the Royal Road, a 2,700-kilometer highway stretching from Susa in Iran all the way to Sardis in western Turkey. Royal couriers could travel its entire length in just 7 days. For comparison, a normal traveler took 3 months. Darius introduced a gold coin called the daric, established a tax system based on each region's productivity, and even had a canal constructed to connect the Nile River to the Red Sea, a Suez Canal 2,000 years before the Europeans thought of it. The artisans of Persepolis, the great ceremonial capital, came from across the empire: Babylonia, Egypt, Greece, and India, each contributing their expertise to create a site that reflected the diversity of the empire. And here's the thing that might surprise you most. The Persians didn't force any of these people to give up their culture. Religious toleration has been described as a remarkable feature of the Achaemenid Empire. Unlike nearly every other empire in history, Persia let conquered peoples keep their religion, their language, their local rulers. As long as you paid your taxes and didn't rebel, you were left alone.
Now, no story of Persia is complete without talking about Greece. You've seen the movie 300. You know the story. Brave Spartans holding back the Persian hordes at Thermopylae. The West versus the East. Freedom versus tyranny. But here's what 300 didn't tell you. Xerxes, the Persian king, was invading Greece partly because Greek city-states had been funding and supporting rebellions inside his empire for years. From his perspective, this wasn't conquest, it was a police action against troublemakers on the western border. The Persian Empire was so vast that Greece was essentially a rounding error, a collection of squabbling city-states on the fringe of the civilized world. And yet, the Greeks won. Against all odds, at Marathon, at Salamis, at Plataea, they held. History remembers this as the birth of Western civilization, the moment democracy survived. What it forgets is that the Persian Empire continued for another 150 years after those battles, still the greatest power on earth, still ruling half of humanity. It took Alexander the Great, arguably the most brilliant military commander in history, to finally bring it down in 330 BC. And even then, Alexander was so awed by what he conquered that he adopted Persian customs, wore Persian clothes, and married a Persian woman. You don't imitate what you've defeated. You imitate what you admire.
Here's what's remarkable about Iran's history, and what makes Trump's Stone Age comment so historically tone-deaf. Iran has been invaded before, many times. Alexander burned Persepolis to the ground in 330 BC. The Arabs conquered Persia in the 7th century. The Mongols, perhaps the most destructive force in human history, swept through and destroyed cities that had stood for 1,000 years. And every single time, Persian civilization came back. Not just survived, came back stronger, absorbing its conquerors, converting them to Persian culture, Persian art, Persian poetry. The Arab conquerors became Persianized. The Mongol rulers began speaking Persian and commissioning Persian poetry. Iran's foreign minister, responding to Trump's Stone Age threat just this week, put it plainly. There was no oil or gas being pumped in the Middle East back then. Are you sure you want to turn back the clock? It's a remarkable thing to say, and a remarkably historically grounded thing to say, from a country that has been here for 3,000 years.
Today, Iran is a country under bombs. Its bridges are falling. Its people are living through a war they didn't vote for. But the land beneath those bombs has seen empires rise and fall for 3 millennia. It was the center of the world when Rome was a village of shepherds. It was building highways and writing declarations of human rights when most of Europe lived in forests. Whether you support this war or oppose it, and that's a conversation for another video, you cannot understand the modern Middle East without understanding this history. Because history doesn't disappear, it just goes underground, and sooner or later it comes back up. If you want to understand how Persia eventually fell, and how a medieval Arab army managed to conquer the greatest empire on earth in under 20 years, that's the next video. Subscribe, and I'll see you there.